can grab one on your way out. It lists all of our events. You can also go to the city's Facebook page or to tacomaparkmd.gov/arts. And so we're excited about our reading, and we've got some musical accompaniment, which is unusual, so that's great. And so I'm going to hand things over to Takoma Park Poet Laureate Kathleen O'Toole, and she's going to be our MC for the evening. Thanks again for coming. Oh, and we'll have a reception afterwards.
Good evening, everyone. I have met many of you at previous readings earlier in this series, but there are always some newcomers, so I will reintroduce myself. Kathleen O'Toole. I am the new, as of this past September, Poet Laureate of Takoma Park, and I'm delighted to be in this position and want to tell you it's getting busy. We've got some really interesting new relationships and activities that are bubbling up, which I'm really delighted to give a little bit of a shout out tonight. Couple of things I want to mention tonight. One is I did not get to thank our arts intern, Yeni, who apparently finished her term, and I missed the opportunity to thank her publicly last month. So since this gets broadcast on our public access channel, I'm thanking her now and calling your attention to the fact that we're recruiting for a new arts intern. If you know anyone who might be interested in that position, it's all on the Takoma Park Arts website. And two things I want to say before we get into tonight's performance. I have had more time since Christmas to get out and into conversations with interesting organizations, one of which you will be hearing about every month at this podium until it happens, which is we are going to have in this very room our first Latinx poetry reading on Sunday, the 7th of April. It'll be one of our celebrations of National Poetry Month. And I have to say, Alvaro, who is usually here honchoing the recording of this event for TV, it was his idea after the second reading, hey, we got to find a way to get some Spanish language poets in. And through him, I met a wonderful organization that meets at the Casa de la Cultura El Salvador, the Salvadoran consulate right over here in Silver Spring, on the last Friday of every month, so not tomorrow, but next Friday, and it's called Alta Hora de la Noche. You can tell I'm not a Spanish speaker. And while it's sponsored by the Salvadoran consulate, last month when my husband and I went, there was a Peruvian guitar player, and they had an open mic poetry reading and a reading of a play. So if any of you are bilingual or interested in the culture of the Americas, I would encourage you to, they're very welcoming. They had me read a poem in English, which they've already translated into Spanish. And as a result of that, we are having here in this room the first Encuentro Poético on Sunday, the 7th of April from 5 to 7. And already they've recruited 7 local Latinx poets from like 5 different countries. So look for more about that, but it is also on your calendar. And then I just want to give a shout out. How many people here in the room have ever been to Sankofa at Montgomery Blair High School? I have lived here for 17 years, and only through my young neighbor did I find out about Sankofa, which is the African American History Month celebration at Montgomery Blair. And if you ever have any doubts about the young talent that's coming up in this community, put it on your calendar now and plan to go next year. I just want to give a shout out to Mrs. Michelle Ely, who's been directing this for a very long time. 150 students participated in this production, and there was lots of poetry in it. I tried to get one of the young poets to come and just offer one of her poems tonight, but look out for it next year. Sankofa, it's an amazing student choreographed, lots of both tribute poetry and original music, dance, and poetry by the students, so look for it next year, okay? And so tonight we have a delightful program. As you can see, I'm surrounded by what we'll have in the second half, which is poetry along with music, second time this year. In the first half, I'm going to introduce the first two poets, have them come up and share their poetry with us, and then I'll come back up and introduce the second half of the program because our two poets will be sharing their work together with the musicians who will be where the instruments are behind me. So first tonight we have Jett and Luc Phinney, and I won't read what's in the program, but I just want to let you know, as usual, we have some very accomplished poets. Excuse me. Luther is a native of Montgomery County and tells me that he actually was in a poetry series that was a precursor for this Third Thursday series that met in this community. And I think look for his chapbook, which I believe is outside and will be on sale afterwards. And so we'll hear from Luther, and then from Luc Phinney, who I met when Luc and I were a part of the Takoma Authors Sale a few years back, and we share a connection to Johns Hopkins, where he not only graduated but teaches, and he's an architect. And he tells me this semester he's actually taken a semester off from Hopkins and teaching architecture in D.C., right? In one of the public schools in D.C. So we have amazingly talented people with us tonight. So Luther, why don't you come up and start, and followed by Luc, and then I'll be back up to introduce the second half of the evening. Thanks for coming.
Good evening, thank you. Archimedes once is said to have written that if you give me a place to stand and a long enough lever, I will move the world. So this poem is called Archimedes' Lever. I built a machine in my backyard for you that is fueled by words, for words are the hinges on which the world hangs, balanced tenaciously, tenuously, and as I am consumed by words that can never describe you completely, I will feed my machine with words I can no longer use. I'll start with the verbs. Past acts and future plans until all motion ceases and time no longer flies, nor grinds, nor winds its spiral down the tracks of space. Then pour in the adjectives, the adverbs, and the articles, so that each thing remaining stands alone without a reference, the way I stand tonight before you. And having stripped each subject, object, bare, so only nouns and names remain to veil the essence, then those too will go to feed the dense and hungry engine lurking in my backyard, until in the end, no thing is left except the pronouns I and you. And those two words alone are true. Now you can follow along as I read this poem. Evin Prison is the notorious political prison in Tehran. And I learned about the practice that is described in this poem. Apparently, this is true. In the grit that gathers at the corner between gray cinder wall and steel floor, I am planting seeds from the straws of a whisk broom skewed by the thousand sweepings with which I count my days here. Water the brittle seeds in sweat wrung from a thin shirt by the cold of moon, night after night, as screams echo in a distant cellar, until on a morning thick with mist, the young green blades sprout from dust, and their roots pry a hairline crack open 1 millimeter more. Now, I'm going to read from my most recent chapbook, which is called Our Situation, and that's the book which I brought along, and it's out on the table. These are poems that were written mostly in the past 2 years, not all of them, but mostly since early November 2016. And this poem is called Spinning. After Charlottesville. In a moment, you hang suspended in midair before the inevitable grind of asphalt against flesh. Consider what it took to reach this instant. Here, a world spun upside down. It is as if a bad dream ensnared you, waking to another dream and then another, until you recognize your situation with a jolt and waken cold, drenched in sweat. You are not dreaming. You are not. That car didn't drive itself. My country is dying. My country is dying, and I am singing the night to sleep. While fireflies rise from their diurnal graves to torch the dark, I sing. While the owl's great wings sweep clean the sightless air, I sing. From the mountains to the prairies, I sing, and from ocean to ocean, we weep. We weep together, for our song is as much a lament as it is a battle cry. The time for nuance is done. The time for gathering stones is at hand. Sing. Sound the drum and bugle. Sound the call from the high places to the sea. We will circle the city with song. Sing down the walls. Sing down the wind. My country is dying in order to be. Let the night end. Let the song go on. Little fire. It was only a little fire, meant perhaps merely to singe the edges of the written page, or spark a torch to pierce the forest gloom. There was smoke on the horizon, and it grew closer until our lungs were choked, our eyes weeping, red with dust, red without end. Preserve us from the slumber of the just, and let the rains rain down. Let sleepless nights become our sacrament. The palace is burning. Strike the calendar from the wall. Let us arise and go. Across the way, the sugar maple blazes under bluest sky. Imagine that winter will pass. Imagine that a year from now, the maple will still be standing. Here's a poem that is based on a photograph that was taken in 1946 of a Polish child. After the guns stopped and I began to see that I was saved and thought I might crawl out of that latrine that was my cradle, when the air fell silent, the small rains driving down the dust to ground. They collected us from the cellars and broom closets, from alley corners, and from blasted fields, brought us to this place of rooms, and empty windows, empty as a belly, where I could not sleep from weariness with the way the long night went, unpunctuated, waiting for the siren's blast, the tramp of boots along the stair that never came. And morning brought the song of spoons and soft-voiced men who said, "Come, child, draw us your house, the house where you were born." And I could not. The edges would not form, nor walls nor windows. None could I recall. I stood, cold chalk in hand, before the slate, scrawling misshapen circles on the black ground, a house no architect could dare design, all broken curves and scattered line, a dizzy, tangled mass of strokes, all adding up to nothing but a sprawl of holes, and not one deep enough to crawl inside. Moving forward in time, epitaph. You wrote my name in stone, graved it in brass, called me hero because that day fire dropped from the sky to brand our city. I was there and did only what wanted doing, no more. And all your flags and flowers, I never lived to see your songs, those speeches, the medals. That morning, I wasn't looking for any of that. That day, I only wanted to get through it. I didn't. And I would give anything not to be your hero. Penultimately, Nepenthe is, in Greek mythology, it describes a river which is the waters of forgetting. And I've been signaled this will be, actually, I'm going to close with this poem. Nepenthe. That time we were starving, one of us died. I don't remember whether it was you or me, but I'm certain the disappearance tore a hole in the continuum, and it doesn't take much now. Fragment of sky, a wall the color of sunflowers, that path between the birches, miss one meal, and all the other hungers rush in. Watch night's fingers grip the naked trees and see how lights flicker on, only to fade out again. Yesterday, I went from room to room all through the house, rifling drawers, unsealing boxes, searching for what cannot be found, for what I have forgotten. Thank you all.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luc Phinney. Hard act to follow. It's some really passionate words. I brought my 2013 book and then some stuff I've been working on more recently. It's strange to look at this book because it's been long enough now that it's like these little vignettes of when I had little children, and now they're not so little, and so it makes me a little nostalgic to go back and look for what to read out of here. But I don't know. I thought I'd read one or two from there, and then just move on to the more recent stuff. So what year was it? Before the kids were in the world. My wife and I got married. Went up to Glacier Park. We lived in Montana, so it wasn't quite so far for a honeymoon. And we get up one morning, and it occurs to us that it would just be a brilliant idea to pack our wedding finery into our backpacks and hike up to this hidden lake that's up at the top of the pass, and take some wedding photos there with our fancy clothing on. So we do. We hike up there. We kind of get off the trail, go into the bushes. She puts on her wedding dress, white, flowing, beautiful. The sun is clearer because of the high altitude or something. Or maybe it just seemed that way to me. Anyway, this is called Hidden Lake. Very short moment that day. Did the mountain goat who followed my wife in her wedding dress wonder how the bear grass had evolved to lace, or contemplate the chase, or think, is this the sun behind the cloud of sensual delight at last embodied? I watched him pace with measured tread and even 10 feet at her back, and thought, oh shit, we're on When Wild Animals Attack. We made it out just fine. They're tamer than they look, but it was a memorable moment. So most of the poems in this book are later than that in my life, in the trajectory or what have you. But a lot of them deal with having my two sons be little, and all of the things that happened so uniquely at that time in their life and in mine. So this is listening for the Emperor of Ice Cream on a rainy afternoon. Why has the haft lost its rake? Whose boots left the holes that are filling with rain? And why is the garden a lake? What is the talk that the rain overhears running in place in the space of the drawn window sashes? How long will this last? What use is a hoe for a flight? What bird doesn't cease on the chaise of the analyst? And what about sight? Can vision be molecule acute? Or if failing that, can it make out at least if it's chigger or tick half sunk in the skin on my older son's neck? I've no tool for this. How long will it last? Why listen for song to come carnival cute? Why buy him a treat? Why not make him wait? Surely if road is to weather as lactose to suck, then wishfuls to waffle is laughter to lack. Why else would the rain try to talk? How long can its muttering last? And what of the dieseling truck? Surely they've somewhere to be. What semblance of hope can an ape entertain when stuttering leads to the sea, when culture is careful and artful and always one way? What son wants to stay? If hunger is sweet, what does waiting abet? And when will the sun come unsunk? If we wait for the song of the popsicle truck with the graying soft lock of the rain on the face of the garden, what hurt is a burden. So, anyway, I love that there's instruments here. I mean, the shapes of the instruments please the architectural side of my brain, and the sounds of the instruments, I guess, the poetry. And I like to find music in poetry, but sometimes poetry has to do something else. So I was driving up to Hopkins last spring to teach a class on design drawing, mechanical principles, that sort of thing, right? Engineers, architects. And then on the radio, there's this story, maybe some of you remember it. There was a mother refugee from Somalia who was trying to get to Canada. And so I've been preparing to teach this class on mechanical principles. And halfway there, I listened to this 2-year-old, a story about a 2-year-old telling his mother he wants to die so she can make it to Canada. How am I supposed to teach when that happens? You know, I mean, I just, it's like, so maybe poetry is for that too. This is a draft. I don't quite know what to do with this yet, but I wanted to bring some recent stuff so I'm not reading, you know, a 5-year-old book. So this is called Mechanical Principles. And it's to the 2-year-old who told his mother he wanted to die so she could go on to Canada. I know it is cold, but you have to go on. Your mother wants a good life for you more than anything, and she's scared. All the talk of deporting refugees, she sees herself, and she sees you when they say refugee. And it's -20 in the Minnesotan fields, and on the frozen rivers, the snow has stars in it. It's safe to walk. I know the map is abstract. There is a fence with a road along it, and there are many fences and roads, and you have to go on. The burn of the cold in your nose is bad, and the ache in your finger bones is not as bad, and your mother breathes clouds, loves you, and any day they could decide to send you back to Somalia. There's nothing else to do. In the warmth of my house, I am preparing to teach mechanical principles, how to turn rotational motion into linear motion, which is the basis of modern industrial civilization. So anyway, some work to do left, but I hope poetry can do that work. All right, 2 more? Okay. The first one, I brought it just in case, but then we had Archimedes, so now we can have Heraclitus, and there's this nice parallel going on, like we planned it, which we planned it. So this is Ode to Flow. Again, kind of a work in progress, but let's give it a try. First time I've read it aloud. All spring it rains and rains. It rains so long the wood doves sit out on branches and power lines and on handrails in the rain, hunching their hollow shoulders. Over the imperfect shelter of a porch roof, the gutters course. First one taxi passes, then another. It's the same taxi. The same brown, bored man, human, driving, but it is also not the same taxi. This from Heraclitus. If reincarnation exists, then the wood dove with its splayed olive oil walk in the fall of water that is never quite a waterfall is thinking, I am Heraclitus, bobbing its head. I am Heraclitus. I taught Aurelius to dice, gave Socrates the good bits, and now, what the F? I'm standing in the rain on 2 bird feet in suburban DC, and the goddamn flow of things just won't let up. I have feathers. I don't even know if I kept my man parts. Do pigeons have man parts? The rain stops. The rain stops. In a puddle, the dove looks at its own underside and bobs its head. Then it makes the churring sound of its particular flight. It leaves a scrawl on the concrete, full of import or parasites. It's all Greek. That'll be funnier when it's done, I promise. Okay, last one. This one's for my wife, and it's a Valentine's Day poem. It's called Valentine's Day Poem. Outside, I see a pile of snow, some incrustation, the ass end of a snowman, or some eructation of winter into this uncertain spring. The snow is no longer white, nor are the clouds, though vision fades a bit each year, so who can tell for sure? Still, let's celebrate with what little youth we have. It's Valentine's Day, and we're still in love. Some days the windows all have flaws. Some days the laws of give and take grow poisonous. Your work, a petty game of saving face, and mine, a crowd or parliament or dissimulation of mere chickadees, are hours culled by these petty and unprofitable trades. Still, let's celebrate in the few hours we have. It's Valentine's Day, and we're still in love. Tonight, the kid's asleep. I'll hold you in the shower and wrap my arms around your waist and feel the slenderness remaining there, knowing I have not lost any desire for what you were and are here. I'll trace the trails beating on your shoulder, touch the concupiscent curb of your right ear. I'll mouth whatever vowels language lets me have. I'll taste and utter water, clavicle, come, love, turn out the lights, lie back, let's have whatever time we have. It's Valentine's Day, and we're still in love. Thanks.
So what I have come to love in the short months of my tenure is the variety of voices that we can have in a single poetry reading. So thank you both, Luther and Luc. I didn't realize that was so close. Phonetically, poetically. They both have books to sell, and Luc was modest. The 2013 book was a T.S. Eliot Prize winner, so take a look at their two books when you go out. And now we have a real treat in store. Carolyn Joyner and Dine, is how you pronounce it, Dine Watson, who are going to be sharing their poetry together and will, I hope, introduce us to the musicians who will be accompanying them. But I should say that between the two of them, they have a host of honors. Carolyn, you were also a Hopkins grad, I believe, a Hopkins MA recipient, and has taught with the Writers' Corps and has had fellowships from VCCA and Cave Canem. And Dine is a representative among us of the DC Women Writers of Color, has read here before, and has been a fellow for the Hurston Wright Foundation. And we are delighted that you're reading here after being at Arena and Folger and Rhizome and all over the place. So please join us and share your talents and introduce us to your musical partners. Thank you.
The pink door on Locust Street sits slightly ajar. Once grand, now suffering at the hands of too many strangers who have no idea where they are going. The vine-covered church across the way still cast an afternoon shadow on the sidewalk as if nothing has changed. Yet 20 years and you are gone. Am I the only one who knows that there has been a disappearance, a vanishing? Am I the only one who remembers what was behind the pink door? 2 rooms on the 3rd floor filled with the secrets and dreams of a fragile black girl. A girl with a distant smile that never seemed anchored in anything I could really understand. A soul longing to exist in some other place. There are days when I take Locust Street just to stand in the church courtyard across the way, searching for a time that has fallen through the looking glass, watching as people walk through my memories of you, carrying away chips of pink paint on the bottom of their shoes. Oh, Annie, that door is always open, waiting for you. Annie, 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 Annie.
Sometimes we tire of feeling blue or gray, so we pick another color like red. That's right, I'm feeling red. Kinky and cool, saucy and irreverent, a little wicked even, yet mesmerizing. A blend of Call Back the Dead red, smoldering in a cognac and cashmere voice, and 5-inch stilettos spiking the somber dance floor. An aroma of ginger with whiffs of mango chutney and cinnamon at its edges. Red as in, yo, baby, you rocking those jeans. Talking about the delicious hugging and apples shine. The blush in freshly spanked cheeks, a sacred sister giggling deep, speaking in wild mimosa tongue. I'm that ribbon kiting a brazen breeze, silken and surprising. My body's room's home to a hellcat itch to bray at the moon in the daytime. Boast I let the dogs out. Unbleached American gorilla dogs. Tethered to the cave of my black skin, barking house on fire red, about to leap.
Ruminations of a poetry teacher. Outside my classroom door, the little brown girls are lining up, having sauntered into morning, arms akimbo with adolescent attitude, eyes flashing in exasperation at where they find themselves again, the same as yesterday and as the day before. Don't even speak to us, they say without a sound. We are not ready for your world of words. This is our morning ritual, a game we play. I smile and let them have their way a while and quiet any urge to call out to them by name. Latanya, Zion, Zakia, Shanice, and many more. Such elevated use of consonants and vowels. And while I acquiesce and do not speak, I watch them close, the same as yesterday and as the day before, and fall in love again with their displays of shades and hues, organic brews of yellow, black, and red, spun so smoothly into brown, the most universal color in all the natural world. But I know that this is not a game, this trust I have assumed, to plant the seeds of dreams and tend the minds of girls, these tender shoots whose very names are poetry, whose flesh and bone are of my own and of those who have already paid the fare. So in time I blend their will with mine, and depending on the nature of the day, I nourish them with Hughes, or Brooks, or Angelo, or Toomer, Walker, Hayden, and McKay. And pray these girls will come to know the ancient rivers Langston knew, and raise their mighty pens to carry on.
It was late 40s. It was cats from LA to Leningrad wanting to make that bird sound. It was everybody wanting to be genius. Only a matter of time till counter-revolution set in. Miles assembled a nonne for a 3-week gig at the Royal Roost, Broadway and 47th. Cut a record a year later. French horns, delicately woven solos, not explosive and bluesy like Bird's bop, ethereal and drifting. A music whose sound knew its time had come to give birth to the cool. After all, who could play faster, higher, harder than Dizzy? So Miles played lower, slower, cooler than anybody else. Hired guys who didn't play as if they had heard a starting pistol. Guys who blended Lester's poetic rhapsodies with Bird. The works of European classicals like Debussy and with Harlem classicals like Ellington. They were the rebels, but Miles, the creator, almighty minister of cool, was in the forefront. He was also in the thick of what murdered it, hard bop, and in the thick of a habit murdering him, heroin. By the mid-50s, cool jazz, all elegance and lyricism at first, felt uptight. There was no contest for Memphis white boys' trousers with jazz's once on fire, or overheated boppers who kept on pumping even though cool school hogged the spotlight. Then Charlie Bird Parker died. Outhouse walls all over America screamed, "Bird lives." He was a god, left behind great music, heroin addicts, a big void. Free jazz to open endless ways to be. With a genius so big, it left no room for future players. Like James Joyce, Bird had pretty much burned down the field he'd set free. There had to be another way. There was, but he was still addicted to heroin.
I was going to wait until the end of our program to introduce the musicians, but I will introduce now Abasi Johnson on the berimbau and Wallace Edwards on all manner of percussion. Ritual. Let's take a walk along the lake, you'd say on summer days, blue eyes longing to look again upon your Harriet, Lady of Lakes, pride of Minneapolis. And with these words, we would begin again down the narrow path behind your house, you leading the way because you knew it best. We'd follow Minnehaha Creek, named Little River by the Dakota people, who were first to watch it flow into Mother Mississippi, farther north where the waterfall falls. But we had ritual to keep and would turn toward Harriet when her shore was in our view, ambling toward her, arm in arm, your arm browning quickly in the summer sun till it was almost dark as mine. At shore, we would remove our shoes to feel the ancient sediment against our toes, the gray-green shale, the limestone, the purest ivory quartz, and pay respect to what and who had come before. In this place, we were connected to everything, the visible, the invisible, the sacred, the profane, the nothingness. And we listened to the Dakota whisper, walking, and stood within the web of all creation. Here our secrets were as water, flowing gently, sometimes wildly toward the lake in trails of tears. Here we prayed as one for absolution from the burdens of our womanness, your broken body, my battered heart. Who knew then that fate and time would ever find us far apart, and that my broken heart would one day seek its healing in the places I knew first and best, so distant from your lovely lake, or that you would choose to stay the path beside the little river that always led you to Lake Harriet, and finally find your solace there. But it is well, as it is meant to be. The Dakota say that everything is one: love, pain, loss, nothingness, everything, even us.
This is for jazz sisters, Billie Holiday, Little Esther Phillips, Phyllis Hyman, et al. In particular, and all women in general. What does it take for a woman to feel her pulse in love's womb, bathe in its peace, know she comes from this hallowed place to the world as its mother? What does it take for her to be the fire of poems that write her, taste the tart sugar of their heaviest fruits, let them inspire her own confiding? When will she know? Her natural stance is upright. Her bones are meant to move easily under her flesh. Her spirit skips in the breath of the wolf, the willow, the wind. When will she know when she's dead, she's not gone? She lives on in the earth and it's spinning, the child who is watching, the marrow of every man. When will she let the music of herself fit into her hips, stomp in her heels, dress her voice in marigold chiffon?
A praise poem to the women. All praise to the women who made me brown. My grandmom's Daisy and Elizabeth Grace. One black coffee, one cafe au lait. My caramel hue is a tribute to you. To the women who gave me form, small on top and not so small on the bottom. with hips and thighs that take me where I need to go. Those Hayes and Johnson sisters that whispered mercy in my ear and dropped dreams in my pocket. To the women who saw me coming before I even got here. Spirit women, vision women, women who made a way for me out of no way at all. Women of unbowed head and untied tongue. A praise song for the woman who made me sing every Sunday in the choir. First row, second alto. Mama Alice, Auntie Mel, Aunt Vera, and Sweet Lorraine. Singing sisters of the highest order. May Jesus keep you near the cross. To the women who made me dance, Baby Alice and Sister Lynn, listening to Shirley and the Shirelles on the AM dial. Cha-cha steps in the kitchen when we should have been doing the dishes. This is dedicated to the ones I love. A praise poem to the women who made me black. The Southern Soul Sisters from the class of '69. We washed our hair one day and saw that it was good. Africa in our faces, worlds in our eyes. Our overnight afros still live in my mind. To the women who made me smart, who expected me to grow up and be somebody. My great Aunt Roberta, the only one who went to college. And my teacher, Miss Drew, who never did marry, but took me to the theater and showed me how to dream. Praise and power to the women who made me strong. 10 speeding with the boys round Montrose Street way. My girlfriend Clara, who beat me in the 50-yard dash. And Miss Geraldine Woods, who went swimming at the YW and wasn't afraid to get her hair wet. This is to the women who made me evil when I need to be evil. Like my Aunt Betty, who put a woman in the hospital for not minding her own business, but was as sweet as pie as long as you didn't cross her. To the women who made me crazy, sure enough crazy women, sure enough my kin, on whom I blame all my unexplainable behavior. And the women who made me sane every Thursday in a circle at 4 o'clock for 3 years. To the women who made me love men, who knew all the delicious secrets long before I did. And the women who made me love women, who understood the mystery and power of the feminine long before I did. This is to the women who made me right. Sharon and Kathleen, Lucille, Anne, and Michelle, who laid the wordy road out before me and bid me walk and to the women who made me whole, marrow and bone, from all the trouble and the wonder. Some have spread their angel wings and flown away. Some are waiting for that trumpet call. All praise to the women who let me know that I did not make myself. Thank you.
In the 70s, the Los Angeles police were rumored to have sung a jingle as they were beginning their beats to the tune of a Lucky Strike commercial jingle. And the jingle was, "Let's shoot a nigga tonight." It was verified that when they spotted a black person, they would radio each other and say, "Gorilla in the mist, gorilla in the mist." Alto moon choirs. The hammers cocked on roads ahead, cops be singing, "Let's shoot a nigga tonight, gorilla in the mist, gorilla in the mist." Big Mama's pipe scratch voice turns up the loudness. "There's chains, child. Then there's other kind of chains. Eyes and slits," she declares. "No matter you can't see 'em, they's always there." Memory waves its swollen flag. Boy warriors hunting in the bush. Uncle Carver, Cousin Annie recaptured, sold back. Freddie Boy's crime, living while black. 2. His only crime, living while black. Riding Agoon winds, coughs from Guinea Gulfports. Tracking Gabon gold dust through time, dead centuries cross today's pockmarked cheek. Shepherded by Orishas, currents of the dead in the living. Sweep Jamaican cockpits, Gullah Sea Islands, muddy Mississippi riverbeds, East Baltimore ghettos, roll and break cross separate and unequal ground. Return Kula, Olada, Ida B, Fannie Lou, Malidoma ghostings, alto moon choirs, to sing "Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Round" songs in backs and thighs. Trees by the water, never to be moved, are not moving in the moving. 3. The not movings in the moving. Night, the south. North too. East, west. Blue skin legs catch Shango fire, forged treetop highways over palm and oak, sycamore, make air speak staccato. Metal steel runs feet forward, knows no jump back, step aside. Ibibio alongside Igbo, Shamba side Fante, house side field, suit side jumper jackets, pump, pound, curious patterns into dark of light at history's clay-covered edges. Juba danced them to its center. With Ogun's machete, they make way through bid 'em in, crafted knots. Jim and Jane Crow's de facto, de jure, cops singing, "Gorilla in the mist, gorilla in the mist." The hammers cocked on roads below. 4. The hammers cocked on roads below. Say the hammers sure enough cocked on roads below. Mr. Charlie got his hands in my pockets, can't pay my dues to life no more. Fingers claw with no mercy, till nothing's left to adore. Charlie claws with no mercy, ain't nothing left to adore. Don't need 7 coils round my neck. Been hanged by his hang-ups. The who in me's down pressed to the floor. Can't sit in soul seat. Say, can't sit in my own soul seat. Tap out its rhythm, rock its hoodoo beat. Used to pay my dues to life and still have change to spare, but I've been hoodwinked out of my nationhood. This is too much for me to bear. Gonna find me some clothes without pockets. Clothes the man can't get his hands in. Say, I'm gonna find me some clothes without pockets the man can't get his hands in, so I can be the self I am instead of the one I've been. Good Lord willing, I can be born again. A born again African. That's right, a born again African. 5. A born again African keep on a walking past trees with gouged eye garnish, Tallahassee's elephantine foot, a Texas head left for buzzards, nightsticks crushed larynx, broken spine. Keep on a talking on up to freedom land. Oh yeah. Exhales leaping Africans into Agoon winds, returns the dead to the living, unstitches fear, scatters its teeth like milkweed. Oh, Martha, don't you weep. Tell Martha, tell Mary not to mourn.
This is for Michael Brown, Jr. It's called Michael Brown, Jr., a postscript. After the flash, the shock, the fury of vast and beautiful darkness, a winged silence that has fluttered now and then at the corner of my eye, then flown away, leaving me to bear the bitter jangle of my lot. Feel my pain, my own mother don't give a damn. I got money on my mind and I ain't got the time, trying to nickel and a dime just to make a rhyme. I always was a sensitive boy, Big Mike, stone trap rapper, straight out of Ferguson, writing lyrics on scraps of paper the way they came into my head and storing them in a jar at my grandma's house. Don't move me, let me lie here where I fell on the cold, hard ground. Let the sun burn my flesh, let the birds drink my blood. This is where I'm from. When the sun goes down on my side of town, well, you in trouble now. Devil, get up off my back, break it down, bag it up. Feel my pain, feel my pain. How peaceful to be as big as the sky. But who knew such peace could only come to me this way? A walk down the street, a pack of cigarillos I only took to calm my nerves. I heard that God don't make mistakes, and one day the whole world is gonna know my name. Feel my pain, 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 feel my pain.
Okay.
This is the final one.
Red, white, and bleak. Day yells red in a familiar hue, but not like the wood of a red fir or the buds on a red maple. It's more the color of a president caught red-handed. The smell of a bank redlining. Not like the bodies of red mullet or red snapper, but shades of the red herring media mogul smoke for copycat screens. It bears no similarity to red-eye gravy or cayenne. It's the red of surveillance agencies, red dogging like life's one big football game. The red baiting red of those who resist, brave the red heat of red hot to make sense of the white, the blue. Stars and stripes whose stripes disappear when you get up close, dissolve like blue tears in white snow. The blue blanched into a bloodless face, whitewashed, a white color stiff with starch, white, like the outermost ring of an archery target, a sun downtown with signs, whites only within city limits after dark. Not the white of elephants, fish, or caps on the Red Sea. Definitely not the white space where poets make their homes. But the hands around the necks of red people, white. The color of maximum lightness perceived to have no hue, white. A spotlight casting red shadows similar to that of blood, white. Technicolor blood, staring from white building sides. Red alleyway screaming, white scrawls, neighborhood evicted. Bring 'em home, close to death. Alongside T-Bone, Calypso Sally, Lil Juicy. Homie's gone, but not forgotten. Paco. Writing on walls in hollowback red. Praise the dead, white, blurred shades of raw, the somber, the bleak.
Abasi Johnson. Wallace Edwards. Thank you.